Everyone's going to talk about Caleb Williams' performance in his NFL debut.
Cincinnati Bengals' slow starts to NFL seasons have gone nowhere.
Josh Allen and Greg Rousseau willed the Buffalo Bills to a Week 1 win over the Arizona Cardinals.
What they gonna say now? What are they gonna say now? Texas dominates Michigan in the big house.
Hey, you can't spell Kelly without two L's.
It's pretty simple. The season is over.
The Locked On Podcast Network presents The Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Hey, you can't spell Kelly without two L's.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast.
Lions come back and win tonight, 26-20. I say come back because they led 17-3, took their feet off the gas pedal, and then their foot off the gas pedal, and then the Rams took a lead at 20-17. Lions with a pretty big drive to get it down there. Had to settle for a Jake Bates field goal. All right, Jake, let's go. It was a chip shot, but I'm not reaching for the kicker list. No. I'm not. And then in overtime, how about 8 plays, 7 on the ground? Ben Johnson, where was this all night? Ground and pound, grit. Run behind your big dog, Penei Sewell. Get David Montgomery back on the field. And God bless Jahmyr Gibbs. He's tremendous. But give me some more Montgomery. He pounds it in from 1 yard out. And the Lions win 26-20 in overtime over the Rams, handing the Staffords another loss at Ford Field. Matthew was tremendous again tonight. I mean, he's out there playing with 5th string offensive linemen, basically. His entire O-line, Steve Avila, out. Note Boom, out. Alaric Jackson, out. The right tackle was out. Jonah Jackson moves from center to guard. It was a wild night for the Rams offensive line, yet Stafford did his thing, man. Matthew Stafford played a great game. But in the end, he didn't have the ball at the end. The Lions had the ball to end the game. Stafford threw for 317, had a passer rating of 85.2 tonight. Jared Goff, 18 out of 28, 217, a touchdown, a bad interception. Got away with another one. And a passer rating of 85.0. We're going to hand out some game balls. We're just going to kind of freelance tonight. Welcome in. For those of you listening, driving to work on a Monday morning, thanks for checking us out. You can follow us on Twitter, at Derry Speaks, at Locked On Lions, the Matt Derry Facebook fan page as well. And again, please subscribe and watch us for free on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. First and foremost, let me say this. The Lions won. The Lions won. They're 1-0. Packers lost, right? Who else? The Patriots beat the Bengals. Lions won. Period. It wasn't pretty. They made a lot of mistakes. There were some bad penalties. There were some guys who played horrible games. Was Aleem McNeil on the field tonight? Holy hell. Name was never called. Brian Branch, what was that? He's never played this bad. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 3 catches. 3. What was it, 16 yards? Amon-Ra St. Brown had 3 catches for 13 yards. If I would have told you at the start of the game, Brian Branch was going to miss like 10 tackles, Amon-Ra was going to catch 3 balls for 13 yards, you would have told me how bad did we lose. But yet the Lions found a way to win. The coaching, not great tonight. I thought McVay and Stafford at times were playing chess out there. The Lions couldn't get pressure again outside of anybody named Aiden Hutchinson. And offensively, they went away from what they do best. And I get it. Jamison Williams was awesome. Jared Goff found him numerous times. J-Mo was like hitting that button, man, and going. 5 catches, $121. big 52-yard touchdown. It was great to see the evolution of Waymo tonight. But 3 and outs to start the second half, and David Montgomery on the sidelines. They can't get St. Brown the ball. They're going away from what they do best, which is Jared Goff finding people in the middle of the field. I didn't get a lot of the coaching tonight. But in the end, you got that offensive line. You got Montgomery. You got Gibbs. It's a great combo. And I loved once Stafford called heads, it turned out to be a tails. Lions got the football. Yeah, we all are very confused about the overtime rules. So much so Chris Collinsworth didn't even know the rule. But if you score a touchdown in the regular season first time touching it, game's over. So people in LA are going to go, this overtime rule is terrible. It sucks. Yeah, it does. But the bottom line is stop them. And the Rams couldn't do it. The Rams were gassed. Ragnow and Zeitler and Sewell, Glasgow and Decker were just pounding the Rams in overtime into submission. And David Montgomery carrying tacklers. How about that one run from the 9 where he just carried everybody to the 1? Awesome. I absolutely love that. And so the Lions escape. They win 26-20. They led 17-3. Rams scored 17 unanswered. Lions had no answer for Cooper Kupp tonight. But I did think the secondary was better. We saw Carlton Davis make a couple of plays. Terrion Arnold make a couple of plays. And I know Terrion's going to have to learn the NFL game. This was his first game. He got called for 2 pass interference calls. If he calls, yeah, maybe. But all in all, you see the improvement from the defense. You do. All right. There were times they couldn't get stops. There were times the Rams were on the field. It seemed like forever. Lions held them to 20 points. In this day and age of free-flowing offenses and 400-yard passing days and everything else, I thought the Lions did all right. They need DJ Reader back. He did not play tonight, was not deemed healthy enough to go. He's going to make a big difference. All right. I know all about training camp Warren Sapp, Levi Onwuzurike, who did have a sack early in the game. But the interior of that Lions D-line should have done so much better tonight. The Rams were down to 3rd, 4th. I mean, the kid from Michigan State playing left tackle, my God, he was bad in college. Hutchinson was abusing him. But when you're down that many guys, you got to take advantage of that. And instead it was the Rams. They were giving Stafford time to throw. A 3rd string left tackle, a backup center, a backup left guard, a backup right tackle. Even McVay said at halftime in the interview with Melissa Stark, we're banged up. Stafford sacked only twice. That can't happen. Got to do better. Got to do better. But again, we exhale. Lions won. They're keeping pace with the division. Minnesota clobbering the Giants. How about the Bears? Touchdown Bears. The Bears had like 100 yards of total offense, it seemed like. 150 yards of total offense and 1. Caleb Williams was brutal. All hail King Caleb. Well, when Will Levis is rolling out and shuffling a pass to the Bears for pick 6, come on. Bears defense is good, but I thought that offense was going to be the greatest show on Soldier Field turf. Please give me a break. It's 1 week. I know. The Bears and Vikings did win. Packers lost Friday night. Likely going to lose Jordan Love for at least 3 weeks. That sucks. I don't celebrate that. We want to see the Green Bay at their best. Their backup, Malik Willis. Good luck.
Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals right up to the start of the event and even after it starts, up to an hour. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app and new users can get $20 off their first purchase with code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cincinnati Bengals' slow starts to NFL seasons have gone nowhere.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast.
It was a slow start to the season. It was a slow start to the game. The offense sputtered for 3 drives, and they really dug themselves a hole. If you were to draw up how this game should go for the Patriots to win, as they did, it was going to look a lot like this game looked.
It hit every mark, or mostly every mark, that they wanted, where you're able to run the ball on offense. You're able to make the Bengals offense look stagnant and stale and keep everything in front of you so you can come up and make tackles. And you take care of the ball. They force a couple of turnovers on defense. You're right. It was the perfect elixir. And yet the Bengals had the ball, first down 6, and a chance to completely change. As crappy as today was, for 55 minutes, they still had a chance to win. And that's one of the many things I think that stand out to me. The decision to punt, knowing that the Patriots have ran on you all day, knowing that you've only given up 16 points, but it never felt like you were routinely stopping the Patriots' rushing attack. And so I think that decision stands out to me. But the other part of this, and let's call it what it is, everyone in that locker room for the past month and a half has talked about at one point or another wanting to get off to a fast start. And that start needed to be a win over the Patriots, whether it was 17-16 or 71-16. They needed to get a win today, and they didn't get a win. They looked lost at times on offense, and it's unacceptable, quite frankly. And it's one game, but for a team that was trying to win the second opener of the Zach Taylor era, the second opener of the Joe Burrow era, Zach 1-5 now in openers, Joe 1-4 in openers. It's not a good look, and especially when you look at the schedule and you see who's looming. So it's a rough day here at Paycor Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real way to spin this where it is a good thing. There are some positives that came out of the game. We will discuss those for sure, but it is not a game where it's like, oh yeah, but there are moral victories here. There are no moral victories when you lose to the New England Patriots in week 1 at home, when you're a 7.5 or 8.5 or whatever the line closed at point favorite. And to me, James, it starts early. It goes all the way to the end. Like, there was very few and far between for positive moments in this game. It felt like most things that could go wrong went wrong. It starts with going 3 and out on 3 straight drives and passes not going past the sticks. And that was a common theme today. The passes that are short of the sticks in crucial situations, on 3rd downs, on 4th down, throwing behind the line of scrimmage, Joe Burrow not pushing the ball downfield. We'll see on film what that looks like. Maybe it's the Patriots doing a great job of taking it away. Maybe it's these Bengals receivers outside of Jamar Chase especially not winning enough. And there's plenty of blame to go around for some of the receiving targets in this game when we talk about the fumbles and the punt return, which isn't a receiving play, but those turnovers were brutal. Mm-hmm. But when you get off to that slow of a start, their first 4 drives go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, fumble, and then you give up a 5-minute, 9-second end of the half field goal drive to the Patriots. I mean, what you're digging yourself such a hole. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. When you have that much, when you just waste a half of football, you're making things very hard on yourself. And it was very hard on them, and that's why they couldn't win, among other reasons.
Yeah, it offensively, and you lose T, you which you didn't know about until Friday, let's be honest. And you find out Friday. Joe said that he found out Jamar was playing on Sunday morning, which I do believe, by the way. I think that's why they elevated Kendrick Pryor, because they really didn't know. And they've never elevated someone from the practice squad and then made them inactive. But clearly there was some questions there. And so it is another year where there's drama and there's storylines that go into week one, and it's a distraction. 2 months ago, I said it would be a distraction, and it was, and it is. And I can't help but think that that's part of it. That's not an excuse, by the way. That, if anything, it's the opposite. It's being critical because I'm sick of weird distractions getting in the way of, especially this opener. This opener is much different than the past two, where the Steelers, at least it's a division rival, and you know exactly why it was so bad. Last year, you know why it was so bad. Joe couldn't move. This year, like, all right, we could talk about the wrist and not throwing it downfield, but he could still throw it. The offense was still able to move the ball. The defense, were they out there? Yeah, they were out there. Like, so there's really no big reason why you should have came in and ran 9 plays on your first 3 possessions. And yet here we are talking about another slow start, talking about a team that failed on a 4th down to Andre Yosevach. Joe Burrow, most of his throws within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. I think Ben Baby had the stat from ESPN Stats and Info. 16 of his first 20 throws within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. That's fine if guys are running free, right? That's the Brady thing, where Brady did that for years and years and years with the Patriots, and people would say, well, that's the scheme and whatever. If they're open and it's working. This wasn't working. They weren't turning into huge plays. You weren't getting chunk plays out of these. The Patriots would just come up and make the play. And that's what was really tough about it. Is it's one thing when it's working and you're breaking tackles or you're making defenders miss and it turns into chunk plays. They didn't have many chunk plays on offense today. And in the first 3 drives were just kind of a preview of what we saw for most of the game.
No, the disparity in tackling was also massive. You talk about the Patriots' ability to come up and make plays. Meanwhile, the Bengals had like 14 missed tackles, I think, according to PFF's initial charting. And Dax Hill, unfortunately, on the spotlight on a lot of those. Like the run game, the run D was, we wrung hands quite often this week about the defensive line depth, and it wasn't great, but a lot of the issues in their run D this week were DBs tackling. They just didn't get the running back down when they had opportunities at or behind the line of scrimmage.
Everyone's going to talk about Caleb Williams' performance in his NFL debut.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast.
To start this game, giving up 17 points to the Tennessee Titans in the first half was not what we expected from that group coming out of the gate. The Titans were running the ball all over them, gashing them for, a big, was it 26-yard touchdown run, I think, from Tony Pollard there that broke away for the big score. Will Levis had a couple of nice scrambles. Tajay Spears was making some plays. It just seemed like whatever the Titans wanted to do on the ground, they were getting it, especially in that first half. They averaged over 7 yards per carry, 115 rushing yards with the score in the first half. And it was all sorts of concepts, all sorts of misdirection. And it seemed like the Bears were having trouble keeping up with where the ball was going, getting off of blocks, getting free over there, and trying to find, new defensive line rotations, some new different guys in there. The linebackers are trying to read off of. It was messy. And then, the Titans could go to play action off of that and had some things rolling there for Will Levis. Everything seemed to change for this Bears defense, not just in the second half, but particularly when the special teams unit blocked that punt. It just felt like there was an energy that was brought back to this defense. And that is what feels to me like what this defense needs. There's a certain energy that they feed off of, and I think they were a little bit deflated after that first half, but they found a way to kind of make a stop there on that first drive of the second half. They still gave up a couple of first downs, but Will Levis avoided a couple of sacks, but then missed an open receiver on third down, and that was when the blocked punt happened, and things changed entirely from there for this Bears defense. Without the luxury of being able to go through the all-22 film yet, it's hard to say definitively what was different and what kind of adjustments the Bears made in that second half, but just having watched it live, a couple of things stand out to me as why things were better in the second half and struggled in the first half. I think, first of all, in the first half, the Bears were keeping things a little bit more, I'll say vanilla from a pass rush standpoint. A lot of just 4-man rushes and a regular look, right? Where it's just your 2 defensive ends and your 2 defensive tackles. They were rotating some different personnel in there, but they weren't having cornerbacks and linebackers and safeties coming up near the line of scrimmage and showing blitz or blitzing off of that. Like, they did a little bit, but not nearly as much in the second half. In the second half, they gave a lot more different looks to Will Levis at the line of scrimmage. It didn't mean I don't have the blitz numbers. We can't say definitively whether they blitzed more in the second half. I think they did, but we don't know that for sure. But the way that it looked to the quarterback was a lot different. A lot more of Edmonds and Edwards hovering at the line of scrimmage, sometimes blitzing, sometimes not. Kyler Gordon getting after the quarterback a couple times there, the safeties as well. Like, a lot more for Levis to have to read pre-snap in the first half, in the second half, whereas in the first, it was a bit more basic for him up front. I also think the Bears found some ways to just kind of experiment with personnel there, and the Titans started running over and over again at really the left side of the Bears, or left side of the offense, the right side of the defense, running at Austin Booker, running at Darrell Taylor, and the Bears were having trouble getting their linebackers free on that end. They also, changed some different things up defensive tackle-wise. Byron Cowart played a lot more in the second half than the first half, and I think he was being a lot more physical in the running game than what they were getting from, say, Chris Williams, who had come off the bench on defensive tackle. I think that was helping the linebackers stay free, and I also think the Titans changed a little bit what they were running offensively in the second half. Anecdotally, it felt to me like the Titans were getting a lot more success with their gap scheme in the first half, like pulling linemen and more physical downhill running that way. And the second half, they went back to more zone that the Bears could use their speed to keep up with. I mean, it's a lot of individual things here that not any one of these is the sole reason the Bears defense played so much better, but a kind of a combination of, all right, let's adjust, let's look a little more aggressive, let's throw some different things at Will Levis, let's get our personnel a little bit better here. And then some of it too is like Titans feeling the momentum shifting away from them and Levis trying to do a little bit too much, forcing too many things. And I just think the block punt gave so much energy to guys like Darrell Taylor and Andrew Billings, who both had great games. I mean, those two guys were absolute studs for this Bears defense. Darrell Taylor, of course, had the 2 sacks, had a couple other quarterback hits there, lodged the ball loose on the forced fumble, and that was a huge turnover for this team. Like, the Bears pass rush wasn't great all game, but it made enough of the big plays that the Bears needed. Like, there were times when Will Levis had time to throw in the pocket, but there was plenty of times when he was moved off of his spot as well. I'm curious what the final pressure numbers end up looking like. But, Dexter got a sack in there. Darrell Taylor had a couple of sacks there. Like, they were able to get some different guys involved in this pass rush, Andrew Billings as well, that ended up making Will Levis's life a little bit more difficult. And then finally, after wearing him down and slowly swinging that momentum further and further, and Levis has to press to do more and more and more, then the turnovers come, or the real, the interceptions, I should say. The pick 6 to Tyreek Stevenson when Will Levis is trying to throw it away, and then, at the end of the game, Jalen Johnson seals it with an interception there. And for me, like, Tyreek Stevenson is still kind of in this young, volatile cornerback stage where, he got beat for a touchdown early in that game when probably shouldn't have allowed a touchdown there, when the tight end kind of just moved past him and made the catch in the back of the end zone. He got burned deep on a big one. Calvin Ridley was open on one that Levis wasn't able to hit, but there were a couple times Stevenson got burned and gave up big plays that hurt the defense. But when he comes back and has a huge pick 6 in the fourth quarter, all is forgiven and all. I mean, and it is. I mean, it still turns out to be a really strong performance from him. His performance was crucial to the Bears' success, even when it was also, especially in the first half, crucial to the Bears' failure there. So the ups and downs of this Bears defense, of letting up 17 points in the first half, which is way more than we're used to, and then shutting them out in the second half and putting their own points on the board, that's what decided this game, more so than the very clear struggles of Caleb Williams and the Bears offense, which is important, but didn't necessarily tell you exactly what was happening in this football game, because there were a lot of different moving parts that led to the Bears' offensive struggles. And I think there's still a lot there to build off of, in addition to the things to be a little bit concerned about. But to me, the big takeaway was that this offense looked close.
You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. For that $5 bet, you might want to take a look at Monday Night Football. The San Francisco 49ers are favored to beat Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. FanDuel has the Niners as 3.5-point favorites. Also, Brock Purdy expected to outpass Rodgers. FanDuel has Purdy's passing yard total set at 240.5. Rodgers at 235.5. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Josh Allen and Greg Rousseau willed the Buffalo Bills to a Week 1 win over the Arizona Cardinals.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast.
The Buffalo Bills defeated the Arizona Cardinals 34-28 and start the season 1-0. And what an interesting game that was. Had some flashes of the high ends of what I think this team can be, and plenty of ugly along the way. But at the end of the day, the Bills climb out of a 17-3 hole. And I think there is just so much good for the Bills to have this type of a win on their resume in Week 1. The game script wasn't what the Bills wanted it to be early on. And game scripts matter a lot. When you think about how teams are constructed, there's certain pathways to victory that make the most sense for them. And for the Arizona Cardinals coming into this game, it could not have went better for them early on. And I think the way the Bills played early on, especially on defense, was a testament to the game script favoring the Arizona Cardinals. Let me explain. First drive touchdown. Arizona goes down the field. They score a touchdown. Of course, aided by a ridiculous personal foul against Jamarcus Ingram for a, air quotes, late hit on Kyler Murray. I don't know what Jamarcus Ingram was supposed to do. Did everything he could to avoid any contact, and I mean barely brushed him. That's a crap call. But that helps them get to a point where they score a touchdown on that opening drive. The Bills get the ball back, and it's set up from a great return from Brandon Codrington. More on him later. Bills start plus 45-yard line. You get 2 first downs in the first 3 plays of the drive. And then all of a sudden, it's 1st and 10, 19-yard line. You're in the red zone. It's an empty formation. Josh Allen holds onto the ball, gets sacked, fumbles the ball. Arizona gets the ball back. They go down the field. They score 10-0. You're down 2 scores. Then you get the ball, right? It's all right. You're down 2 scores. Time to get some points on the board. And the Bills offense is moving it once again. The Bills score a touchdown. Josh Allen rushing touchdown. It's taken away because of an Osiris Torrance face mask call. Unfortunately, it's the right call, but it takes a touchdown off the board. It winds up being a 4-point swing because the Bills have to settle for a field goal. Then Arizona goes right down the field, and they're winning 17-3 before you can blink. Now, from that point forward, the Bills took control of the game, and a big reason why was the double dip. Double dip is when you get the ball first in the second half, in addition to the last possession of the first half. That was a 14-point swing. The Bills scored touchdowns on those 2 drives in a row before Arizona really got the ball back. But the point being that 17-3 hole put the game script in favor of Arizona. And really, for Kyler Murray and that offense, it allowed them to just run their offense. They didn't have to chase anything. They just had to run their plays. They didn't have to process. Kyler Murray didn't have to make any decisions. The game script was going their way. They could just play the game they wanted to play. And so for the Bills to climb out of that hole and ultimately win, and we're going to get more in depth here, folks. We'll talk about the things I like, the things I didn't like, but I think it's really important to talk about this as a resume-building win that this football team can build upon the rest of the way. They've already been in a lot of adversity in one game. 17-3 hole. Taron Johnson, arguably your best defensive player, goes down. You got to figure it out. Arizona's taken away your primary weapon in the passing game in Dalton Kincaid, and you got to figure it out some other type of way. That's a big deal for a new football team that's got almost 40% turnover in terms of the roster from last year to have this moment to build upon moving forward. I think it was hard to watch at times, right? Your heart's beating, you're out of breath. I mean, you're like, man, is this even fun? Right? It was a stressful game. But to come out of it the way that you did, to come away with this win, I think is really good for this team in particular, the way they're constructed with all the transition. To have this on the resume immediately, I think is a really good thing. A really good thing. You didn't have the script you wanted it. You didn't have it the way you wanted it, but you figured it out and you found a way to win. I think that's a big deal. And being in these types of moments will help the Bills battle through the inevitable adversity that's coming their way throughout the course of the season. And I want to kind of elaborate a little bit more on Taron Johnson going down, because I want to start to kind of get into things that I liked. And of course, we're going to talk all about Josh Allen and Greg Rousseau, I promise you. But part of that game script that I got into was Taron Johnson going down. And this was a big deal for the Bills in terms of structurally how they're going to play defense. We learned through seeing the game and then the comments afterwards that the plan was very much for, in long and late downs, when the Bills go dime defense, Dorian Williams is coming off the field. Cam Lewis is coming in as a third safety, just like they did last year, where Tyrell Dotson comes off the field, Taylor Rapp comes on the field. That was their plan. And almost instantly, they had to reinvent the way they play defense. And a big shout out to Jamarcus Ingram, because Cam Lewis had to be the full-time nickel defender, and Jamarcus Ingram is all of a sudden a third safety. Not a guy that's had a ton of opportunity in the NFL to this point, came in and did a good job. And, of course, the last play of the game where we're all worried about them scoring a touchdown and hitting an extra point to win the game, they test Jamarcus Ingram with Greg Dortch, who was their best receiver in this game, and Jamarcus Ingram was up to the moment. To come out of a game like this, being able to check boxes like that is a big deal. You need all 53 players on your roster to win in this league. You need them. And if this wasn't a great opportunity for Sean McDermott to point to that and say, be ready, because you don't know when your number's called. You think Jamarcus Ingram thought he was going to come in and be the third safety today? Probably pretty unlikely, but he was ready for the moment. That's a big deal for a team like this that has goals to be able to achieve them.
Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals right up to the start of the event and even after it starts, up to an hour. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app, and new users can get $20 off their first purchase with code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What they gonna say now? What are they gonna say now? Texas dominates Michigan in the big house.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Now, right? Last year, we went on the road and beat Alabama. They said this isn't the same Alabama team. That's the only reason Texas went on the road and won that game, right? Then they said Texas would have to do it one more year after Texas made it to the playoffs, after they won the Big 12, after they went 12-2. They said Texas would have to do it for one more year before they could believe, right? They said if Texas didn't go out there and dominate Michigan, what would it really mean? Because this is a bad Michigan team. We saw the spread go from -3.5 to -7.5. I mean, the spread could have gone to -15.5. It wouldn't have mattered, right? Because good teams win, but great teams cover. And once again, Texas absolutely went in the big house and dominated. Texas is for real and a completely different beast than Fresno State. And the Michigan Wolverines and 100,000 people in the stands just found that out. What are they going to say now about the Texas Longhorns? Other than we're here and we're a force to be reckoned with. And everybody, whether you love Texas or hate Texas, whatever your opinion on Texas is, you have to recognize that this is one of the best football teams in the country, bar none. What are they going to say now? Nothing. That's what they're going to say now. Nothing, right? Just an exceptional performance from this football team on both sides of the ball. Forgive me if I got to look at my phone. I got a bunch of notes in here, right? You know what I'm saying? So exceptional performance from this football team on both sides of the ball. Just exceptional poise from this football team going into one of the biggest stadiums in college football and just treating it like a home game, right? I mean, just treating it like they weren't worried or scared about who was on the other side of the ball. They absolutely went into the big house and made it their house. Once again, beating Michigan 31-12. Today. I thought, there's so many great performances on both sides of the ball, but you have to start with the quarterback, right? Quinn Ewers was masterful in this game. Any questions that NFL evaluators may have had, I think he answered a lot of those today, right? Just what a storyline from Quinn Ewers, right? The quarterback from Ohio State that comes to the University of Texas. And Ohio State has not beat Michigan since Quinn Ewers left, right? And so, Ohio State, Quinn Ewers leaves. They can't beat Michigan. And now Quinn Ewers, the former Ohio State quarterback, goes into the big house and beats Michigan on the way to a magical season for the University of Texas this year. So just a special performance from Quinn, 24 of 36 for 246 yards and 3 touchdowns. Of course, things slowed down a little bit in the second half, but he did his work in the first half, and the game was already out of hand by then. On top of the stat line, right? Of course, you see the 3 touchdowns, the 246 yards. He was special, right? The poise that he showed in the pocket and against the rush, right? He's going against Josiah Stewart. He's going against Mason Graham. He's going against Kenneth Grant, some of the best defensive linemen in the country. And Quinn Ewers walked into the big house once again like it was his house. Like I said, just, showed his poise, was able to stand in the pocket, make some special throws today, and was really good against that rush, the blitz, whatever Wink Martindale threw at him. Him and Steve Sarkisian were able to answer all of those questions. His ability to use his legs, right, to run for first downs, but to also navigate the pocket, right? He was moving around, evading the rush, buying extra time for his receivers and making those plays down the field. And then, when you look at it, his ability to constantly make the right plays and go through progressions on some of the game's biggest plays, right? Find the open wide receiver, constantly make the right reads, and just deliver the ball down the field and continuously move this Texas offense against one of the better defenses in the country. In my eyes, we already knew Quinn Ewers was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. We already knew Quinn Ewers was a bona fide Heisman candidate, but he grew up today in a big way. And I know NFL evaluators, they were all watching this game. They are looking at a special quarterback coming from the University of Texas. I thought Quinn Ewers grew up in a big way. I mentioned on the show last week, right, talking about the running backs. There was a lot of question marks coming into the season about our running backs when you lose a guy like Christian Clark, when you lose a guy like Cedric Baxter, when, a week before the season, there's only 3 scholarship running backs on the team. But after watching this team against Colorado State, I said that, this system, Steve Sarkisian's system, is running back friendly, right? He's had great running backs, and so they get a lot of the credit. But there's a reason he's had a 1,000-yard rusher every year since he was at Washington. And then you look at it today in a big matchup against a really big defense, Jaden Blue, Jarrett Gibson, Trey Wisner, even though none of them really went off individually, they all made great plays, but none of them just had a spectacular game individually. Of course, Jaden Blue missed some snaps because of that injury he had to his ankle. He had to get taped up. 140 total yards combined between Jaden Blue, Trey Wisner, and Jarrett Gibson. So like I said, none of them individually just popped or did anything amazing, but they were steady, right? They kept Texas on the field. They continued to get third down conversions. They continued to move the ball down the field, and then Texas put the ball in the end zone when they needed to. So like I said, this system is really running back friendly. There's a reason that, Steve Sarkisian and Texas continue to have these 1,000-yard rushers, continue to put running backs in the National Football League. And we saw today, Jaden Blue, Trey Wisner, and Jarrett Gibson were more than enough for this running game to carry Texas to a huge victory over the Michigan Wolverines. But none of that happens, right? None of that happens between Jarrett Gibson, Trey Wisner, and Jaden Blue without a special performance from the offensive line, right? We know that Kelvin Banks is one of the best offensive linemen in the country. We just expect him to come in and week out and do what he does, right? But one of the biggest matchups in this game was going to be their defensive line versus our offensive line, right? I thought coming into the game, that's why a lot of people predicted Texas to win big, because Texas has so many advantages against this Michigan team. But one of the few advantages that Michigan had against Texas was that interior defensive line, right? Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, even Josiah Stewart coming off the edge, right? But you're talking about those two big guys in the middle. How would Jake Majors, Hayden Conner, and Devon Campbell hold up against Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, right? And not only did they hold up, they dominated that matchup, right? Jake Majors, Hayden Conner, and Devon Campbell absolutely dominated that matchup and allowed our running backs to just continuously eat up yards, continue to get first downs. I mean, there was at one point where they were just gashing them down the field for 7, 8, 9 rushing yards at a time. So in a game where I thought Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham would really show up, right, it was Jake Majors and Hayden Conner that really shut them down and allowed our Texas running backs to run the ball at a high level and kept Quinn Ewers poised, right? Because we've seen at times Quinn Ewers in the past could kind of falter a little bit under pressure. I thought he did so well today under that pressure, but they made it, they did a really good job of making sure that he wasn't running for his life today, that pressure wasn't coming up the middle. They held their own in the passing game and in the running game is one of the biggest reasons why Texas won that game. Returning 4 or 5 starters, one of the best offensive lines in the country. They had a big matchup today, a huge matchup today, and they absolutely showed out. So credit to Jake Majors and Hayden Conner, because, I mean, who would have thought, right? Who would have thought in the offseason that Jake Majors and Hayden Conner would dominate Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant? And that's exactly what you saw today. So there's some special performances from the quarterback, the running backs, and our offensive line.
You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. For that $5 bet, you might want to take a look at Monday Night Football. The San Francisco 49ers are favored to beat Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. FanDuel has the Niners as 3.5-point favorites. Also, Brock Purdy expected to outpass Rodgers. FanDuel has Purdy's passing yard total set at 240.5. Rodgers at 235.5. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's pretty simple. The season is over.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
I am completely stunned. I'm so mad that I'm at a weird state where I can't even express my frustrations. Honestly, all you have to do is kind of laugh at the situation, or at least that's how I'm coping at this point in time. And this is just basically going to be a stream of consciousness. I don't even have any notes. I might look at some stats, but honestly, the stats don't really matter. Notre Dame was outplayed by Northern Illinois after the first drive of the game. Notre Dame marched right down the field, and they scored in the opening drive of the game. And after that, I felt, okay, maybe this team is not going to have a letdown performance. Maybe they did prepare the right way throughout the week, and maybe they did come ready to play, but that was completely wrong. All week in the lead up to this game, I expected Notre Dame to have a bit of a letdown. I felt like the emotional toll coming off that win against Texas A&M was going to impact how this team would play against Northern Illinois. I was not surprised at all that they started off sluggish in the first half. I was not surprised that the offense was not able to move the ball effectively. But what I was surprised about was how well and really how easily Northern Illinois was able to move the ball on the Notre Dame offense. In the second half, I thought Notre Dame would pull away, and they just flat out did not. They lost the game. The better team in this game won the game. Northern Illinois won. They never made a critical mistake at any point in time where you thought maybe the dam's going to break, maybe they're finally going to screw up, or maybe the talent in Notre Dame is going to take over. It just never happened. It felt like on every third down, Northern Illinois got it when they needed to. Even on that third down there at the very end, I honestly thought Northern Illinois got it. Notre Dame actually caught a break because they should have been charged for a timeout. They didn't. They got the ball back. I'm thinking maybe there's a chance they sneak away with this win, and they didn't. And I think there's several things to take away from this game. You got to look at Riley Leonard. Is he the future of this team? Because he's not the future of this program. He's going to leave after this year, and he played terribly today. There's no excuse. He was able to run the ball at will to start the game. He's the person who scored there on the opening drive. I'm pulling up his final stats right now. Sorry, I don't have them in front of me. Yeah, 20 of 32, 163 yards through the air, 2 interceptions. On the ground, he had 11 carries for 16 yards. That is not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it against any team on this schedule, let alone Northern Illinois. He played terribly in this game, and he's a big reason why Notre Dame lost. It's just the truth. Okay, I defended him. I thought he was the perfect fit for this team because I felt like his elusiveness, his ability to avoid pressure in the pocket was going to make up for the fact that Notre Dame had a developing offensive line. And boy, did they have a developing offensive line. They did not play well in this game. Northern Illinois was able to run the ball much more effectively than Notre Dame because their offensive line got a much better push than Notre Dame's. They have a veteran group. They have a group that's probably nowhere near as talented as what Notre Dame has. It didn't matter. They absolutely moved the ball compared to Notre Dame, but still it goes back to the quarterback on this play, or on this really, in this whole game, really. Riley Leonard was terrible. On the final drive, he throws second to last drive for Notre Dame, throws a back-breaking interception. I have no idea why Notre Dame was throwing the ball. I was complaining when they were completing the passes. When they completed 2 to Bo Collins there on the outside, I'm just thinking, why are they throwing the ball? Those 2 were so close to getting picked. Just run the ball. You had finally been having some success running the ball. They didn't do it. Riley Leonard forces the issue downfield. Northern Illinois picks it off. They return it, and they're pretty close to field goal range. They ended up getting it into field goal range. Their kicker makes the kick. Good for him. That's going to be an all-time moment in his life and every player's life on Northern Illinois and the coaching staff. You got to hand it to him. Notre Dame's offense was terrible in this game. The fact that Jeremiah Love only had 11 carries for 79 yards is really just mind-boggling to me. He has that unbelievable run for a touchdown. He hurdles a guy. It's one of the most athletic plays we've seen a Notre Dame player make in God knows how long. And then he got one more touch after that in the fourth quarter. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. If you're struggling in this game and you can't get a push in the line of scrimmage, what do? You give the ball to your best player. Well, Jeremiah Love is one of Notre Dame's best players, and he didn't get the ball. So it's on Riley Leonard. It's also on the coaching staff all the way through. It starts at the top, Marcus Freeman, Al Golden, defensive coordinator. Northern Illinois moved the ball at will on them for a lot of the game. They weren't able to score that many points, but I think Al Golden got outcoached for the majority of this game. Mike Denbrock, what are we hiring you for if you're Notre Dame? What are you paying this guy $2 million for? And I understand that the quarterback really wasn't making plays downfield, but why are you forcing the issue passing the ball downfield there at the end of the game? I just don't get it. I don't get it. And for Marcus Freeman, welcome to the hot seat. I'm just going to say it. The seat is hot, okay? And for all the people who love and root for Marcus Freeman, I get it, man. I really, really want Marcus Freeman to succeed. But there is a pattern here. There is a legitimate pattern now. This is his 3rd season as the head coach. And every single year, there's a couple games where Notre Dame is just flat out not ready to play whatsoever. 2022, his first season as head coach. Losses to Marshall, losses to Stanford. Last year, they lay a complete egg against Louisville and Clemson. This year, it's Northern Illinois, coming off one of the biggest wins in recent history for the program. This cannot happen. I expected a letdown. I did not expect just a complete dud of a performance all the way around. So it's on Marcus Freeman, and he's got to get it figured out. I really want to root for him. I think he's a great person. I think he's a tireless worker. I think he's really brought a new energy to the recruiting trail. But that does not matter if you cannot win on Saturdays. And Marcus Freeman has not won enough on Saturdays to have any type of long-term security in this job. He's got to prove it. Right now, I said at the beginning of this, the season's over because this is not a playoff team. It's not. They're going to lose again. If they lose to Northern Illinois in the second game of the season, they've got some tough games still on the schedule. It might not have seemed that tough last week, but now Louisville, that's going to be a tough game. Who's to say that Louisville can't beat Notre Dame? Georgia Tech barely lost to Syracuse, even though they got outplayed for the majority of the game. They could absolutely beat Notre Dame. USC, definitely talented enough to beat Notre Dame. This looks like it could go 8-4. Just the reality of the situation, okay? And I want Marcus Freeman to succeed just as much as the next guy, but the time for excuses has got to go. It's gone. I'm not calling for Marcus Freeman to be fired. I'm not calling for Al Golden or any of the coaches to be fired. But the reality is this is not cutting it. You cannot lose to Northern Illinois at home. You cannot lose to Marshall at home. You cannot lose to Stanford at home, and they've done all 3 in 3 years. You can't have a complete lackluster performance against Louisville and Clemson last year, and they did both. trust me, I understand that it's not all in the coach's fault. I think that there's a lot of things to pick apart about this game, offensively and defensively, but it starts at the top. And this is inexcusable. This is an embarrassing loss for Notre Dame to come off such a big win in a primetime moment, to have everything ahead of you this season, and then to just completely blow it all up in week 2. It's embarrassing. And I understand that Notre Dame fans are frustrated. I understand that they're lashing out. They're probably not handling this great. And I think I probably wasn't in the best of spirits during the game, but I think now I'm just sort of numb to it because it's sort of the same result, different year, right? Notre Dame is able to have these moments you're thinking, man, are they finally back? And no, they're not. They don't have the right quarterback right now. I think that's a fact. I think that you have to seriously look at Riley Leonard and figure out if he's the quarterback the rest of the way, because he's not going to be around the team next year. And I'm sorry if I'm kind of all over the place right now with my points. Like I said, I'm just kind of giving you my instant reaction in this post game, just a stream of consciousness, every thought that's going through my head. I can't say everything that's going through my head, or else this would be an R-rated show, and I don't think anyone would want to listen to that right now. But it's just an embarrassing loss, and it's something where I'm going to go back and watch this, and I'm going to try to figure out how on earth did this happen, and maybe we won't ever know. I mean, Marcus Freeman said it was a very physical week of practice. He thought the team was ready to go, and clearly they were not. And something I just want to keep stressing is, like, Northern Illinois was the better team on that field today. Absolutely. Look at their total yards, 190 rushing yards in what we thought was going to be one of the best defenses in college football this year. Their quarterback, man, Ethan Hampton, his stat line isn't going to blow you away. 10 of 19, 198 yards and a touchdown, but it felt like every time he needed to make a big play, he did it. On third down, he would find a receiver or the tight end, Grayson Barnes. Really tough coverage, and they would get to first down. I mean, just every single time it felt like Notre Dame was finally going to pull away from this team. They just would not let up. So you have to give credit to Northern Illinois. You got to give credit to the head coach, Hammock, coached an unbelievable game. He absolutely outcoached Marcus Freeman. So now, to sort of circle back to Marcus Freeman here, a lot of eyes are going to be on him and how this team plays the rest of the year. They could bottom out. They could. They could end up going 8-4, 7-5, and after that, you got to have real conversations about Marcus Freeman. I remember seeing a tweet before this game that Notre Dame made a big mistake not extending Marcus Freeman. Well, probably a good thing they held off on that, because this is unacceptable, man. And this is not a playoff team. This team, I'm not even going to entertain the thought of going 11-1 and making the college football playoff, or even 10-2, because that did not look like a playoff team out there, and we got to get over that right now. So it's on Marcus Freeman, it's on Mike Denbrock, it's on Al Golden, the rest of this coaching staff to figure out what went wrong and how to prevent that from ever happening again. And rather than looking ahead to the rest of the season and trying to figure out what's still left to play, they just got to focus on Purdue, because Hudson Card looked good in their season opener against Indiana State. He shredded them. And sure, Indiana State isn't that good, but I don't think Northern Illinois is that good. So they've got to figure out a way to beat Purdue. If they beat Purdue, then they got to figure out a way to beat Miami of Ohio. And if they beat Miami of Ohio, they got to figure out a way to beat Louisville. If they're able to beat Louisville, maybe I'll entertain the notion that maybe tonight was just a really bad game and they're able to figure things out, and maybe there's still some things left to play for this team. But I think that's getting way too far ahead of ourselves. Notre Dame has to really look in the mirror, every single person on this team, on the staff, and figure out how the hell they let this happen, because this is embarrassing. And all of the jokes that are going to be coming in from opposing fan bases and the national media, suck it up, Notre Dame fans, because we deserve it. Notre Dame did not play well. They got embarrassed, and now they are going to have to deal with the repercussions. And that is just the reality of the situation. And it's not fun to talk about. I'm not necessarily looking forward to doing 5 episodes this week to talk about this game and what lies ahead for this season, because this sucks. I'm not even going to lie. There's no way of sugarcoating it. There's no positive spin here. This is just the reality of the situation. Notre Dame in the football program had a great chance this season to really make a step forward, and it felt like they did in that season opener against Texas A&M. And for all the progress and all the momentum that they had, they went a million steps back, and we are right back to where we were a couple years ago, and we have to question the future and the direction of this program. And it starts with Marcus Freeman. It starts with every single player and every single person on this staff, because this is absolutely inexcusable. And for this to happen again after 2022, when Notre Dame lost to Marshall and lost to Stanford, it begs the question, where is Notre Dame headed? What is the direction of this program? What faith should the fan base have in this coaching staff to right these wrongs? Because frankly, they have not done enough to give anyone any confidence that they are the right people to figure this out. And look, I want this to be much better than it is. I want Mark Freeman to figure it out. But man, the excuse making is over. Okay, he is fully on the hot seat. I'm not saying he should be fired, but you got to look at Marcus Freeman and think, is this really the best option? Can you allow for these losses to happen on Saturday to teams that Notre Dame is far more talented than? It can't keep happening. And it's happened a lot over the past 3 years. So what do you do now? I think you just prepare for Purdue. You try to focus everything you can on that game, and you win that game, and then you just got to take it one game at a time, because Notre Dame's got a long road to getting back to where they need to be. And even though we thought they were on the right track, right now, they are certainly not.